Hey guys, so previously I've done the top DPS unit in Echo era for FE30. Now JP already reached FE50, so I consider that as a new era. So for this time, let us talk about top party HP damage limit up. So as a disclaimer, actually it is quite standard now that every character that has BT, they have about 30% HP damage limit up, even DPS character, even utility character. So what makes the difference between an aura bot, like a support unit, a full support unit, and a DPS is that the high armor on the support unit does provide more HP damage limit up compared to DPS character. And do note that this is more like a fun video for me sharing out some information that I keep, because this should not be a factor where you decide if you should pull a unit. So you don't pull a unit just because it has the highest HP damage limit up. You can take it as a factor, but not solely on HP damage limit up. One of the reasons is because most of the fight now, we can already overpower the fight even without stacking up high HP damage limit up. And apart from HP damage limit up, aura bots usually provide other stats as well: brave gain up, attack up, all those things. But at this point, even if we bring one support unit, usually we already are able to hit cap damage. So I kind of did not really discuss in detail about the other stat, but do note that certain fight, if you know how to stack up those specific stats, you can actually bypass certain mechanics. So like previously, Pandemonium Spiritus, it has very high HP damage reduction, but if you bring characters like Yuna, which have very high HP damage up, and then you put 3 units with high HP damage up, you can actually bypass that mechanic, because you are able to still do damage, so you don't have to bother about the force time. Similarly, for Shiva Spiritus, it has very high max brave down, so if you have high max brave up, you can kind of like counter that specific mechanics. Another point here to note that even I mentioned like HP damage limit up should not be your sole factor, but HP damage limit up scales. So like if you have character like Kurasame who have 60% HP damage limit up, you still can use him like down 7 or 8 months in the future, because he have such high HP damage limit up, and with character getting more HP dam, is just gonna scale up. Okay, so that is the advantage of having high HP damage limit up. But another point to make here is that we do have character like Noctis, Core that deal often damage, which technically boosts up the entire damage and kind of like similar function to HP damage limit up at this point. And most of the time, if you have Noctis or Core, because their BT already have 30% HP damage limit up, and with the additional attack that they do, they kind of like provide better offensive compared to other support characters that have very high HP damage limit up. So let us jump right into the list. Characters with 35% HP damage limit up, we have Mok, Warrior of Light, Charlotta, and Setzer. Charlotta, to me, I think is because she did not really get a rework. She just got an Echo, so they did not upgrade her BT effect. While Mok and Warrior of Light, they are not purely support units. So one is a utility DPS support, while Warrior of Light is a tank. So they do have lower HP damage limit up. And then we have Setzer, who also have added utility in terms of disabling the enemy, but overall he is a good character. He does have an effect that's very similar to Quina, which is allow your party to deal cap damage, but by chance. Quina is 100%, so Setzer is by chance. So these 4 characters has 35%. And at 40% generally is most of the support units. So we have Ursula, Beatrix, Aerith, Garnet, Quina, Braska, as well as Twin. So Twin is kind of special because they are situational. It can be 20 against single target, which you will never bring Twin into, and then 40% against 2 enemy and 60% against 3 enemy. And for Ursula as well, she's situational in the sense that it can be 40 or 90, because if you use HP plus, then it's 90. But overall, these characters, except for Twin, they are more likely of a support unit, while Beatrix here has tanking potential as well as Aerith. The difference between them is that, like for Beatrix, it's more of an off-turn strategy unit. So if you want to do off-turn, then you will never bring the other support. You will probably bring Beatrix, maybe Aerith, Garnet or Quina, but the others you won't bring them for off-turn. For Ursula's case, she kind of excels because her FR has a very generic condition, so it's very easy to fulfill. Twin somewhat, right? Somewhat, if you can find a fight that really can comply with their FR, activating their FR together with their BT, then you get really high 90 up to 110% HP damage limit up. Braska as well, because you know, generally after next month, most of the characters that we get, they all have generic FR condition. So it's more about team building in order to fulfill their FR. As for 45%, we have Lena, Sarah, Rosa, and Queen. So you can see that all these bow users, they have 45% damage limit up. And on top of being just a support, they actually deal pretty high damage because they all have follow-up attacks. So Lena has 4 HP down follow-up attack AoE, Sarah and Rosa have 3 HP down. And among these 3, Rosa have capability of fast charging because she has buff ability, while Sarah and Lena do not. And Sarah specifically actually is a debuffer, so they kind of like actually fulfill different roles. And for Queen, she's also 45, but if you use HP plus and EX, it can go up to 95. So again, it depends on your team composition, how you are building your strategies here. Then moving on at 50%, I kind of like narrowed down the list just for characters that have Echo, but I put Penelo in because she is still very relevant now in this era. Even until the end of this era, I believe she will be relevant. I will be using her, I will be demonstrating her, so there is no reason to say, you know, why Penelo has not received an Echo yet. So here I'm actually commenting on a post in Reddit where people kind of like think that she's not good enough because she doesn't have Echo. So if you use her FR as a main FR and then you chain another 4 Echo, technically you are using 5 FR abilities. It's just 1 less than, you know, using 6, right? So overall, she's still a very good character. Do not undervalue her kit. She is really that good. And then 50% here, we also have Ram, Iris, and Fusoya. Ram kind of like have that turn manipulating going on, so she's actually very useful in that sense for you to set up your team. Iris, her gimmick to reduce enemy max brave to 0 is really good, and she has that EX, you know, if you abuse it right, you can go way high, 100 and even billions of damage. And we have Fusoya here as a hybrid disabler, DPS now as well. At 55%, there's only one character, which is Quistis. So she excels in delaying the enemy, and she also has 55% HP damage limit up. So that's actually pretty good. And at 60%, we have Kurasame as well as Lan and Rin. But Kurasame, you kind of like have to inflict hero debuff on the enemy. So in like the most recent GL fight against Core Lost Chapter, we cannot inflict because enemy is immune to Imperial, so he kind of lost that 20% HP damage limit out, so he's only dealing 40. But this 60 is actually very high even until the end of the era, and together with his BT effect that freezes enemies brave, prevent them from dealing any damage, that is something that is actually very good until the end of Echo FE30 era. Twin, again, is coming back to Twin here because they does provide 60%, but only against 3 enemy, and we do not have much. The only one that appears in my mind right now is Ifrit fight and Shantoto's fight. Then at 65% is Kirin. I thought he is 60, but after I look into Compendium, he's actually 65, and his FR has 50% HP damage limit up as well, and it's very generic. So actually this makes him a very good support unit even moving in to FE50 era. So I believe they do need to give him that in order to make him relevant in the next era. And at 70% here, so Deuce is currently the highest for like non-conditional. Well, technically she have to buff the player, so her buff provide additional of 20, so her base kit provide 50. But the buff is mostly guaranteed, you know, to apply, because every time she does follow up, she apply the buff. So total is 70%, and that makes it the highest for generic HP damage limit up to the party. And for Ursula, like I say, she has the potential to provide 90%, but only for characters that uses HP plus, like Rinoa, or Yuffie, or Reno herself, Queen. Okay, so she's very specialized in that sense, and it's not necessary she provide up to that HP damage limit up all the time. And similarly, Queen has that same thing going on for her, and she is 5% higher than Ursula, and she has the additional condition where EX attack is also considered. So it's not just HP plus, but EX. So it makes her more like applicable to more character compared to Ursula. So if you like that, then you can go for a kit. But again, why compare when you can both bring Ursula and Queen into the same party, providing up to 180% for your character that is using HP plus attacks. And lastly, the highest in the list here is Anna Crow. So it's kind of special because she actually just provides 30%. She do not have an armor, high armor that provide HP damage limit up for the party, but her BT effect have a condition. If you are, let's say, at 210% HP damage limit up, she will round it up to the next 100, so it becomes 300%. So if you are really good in math, then, and you count it right, like you stack up all the HP damage limit up and you reach, let's say, 305%, she provides that additional 95% by rounding up the number, which makes her actually a very, very good, that boosts up the entire damage of the whole party. And also her FR is generic with her BT, and she also has 50% on her FR, making her a monster in providing HP damage limit up for the entire party. So that's all for the video. I hope you like it. As from the community post, the next thing I will talk about is the uniqueness of each of these support characters. So maybe that it will help you decide on what you should pull for. And probably I will discuss a little bit more in terms of team composition, like with HP damage limit up and now with the extra utility, how are you going to actually execute that to optimize your team. So again, thank you and goodbye.